Okay, let's talk about the transfers that we expect to see in the Premier League over the course of the next 24 hours. You're the man who's going to be on duty tomorrow, deadline day. Special show with Jim White, 6:30 tomorrow. talkSPORT, definitely the place to be to follow all the action. This man's broken more stories than Kevin's broken windows in back gardens with free kicks. Let's talk Martinez first of all, Emi Martinez, because that's the big story as we sit here on Sunday night. Because when asked about what's going to happen with his goalkeeper, he was rather fiery, Unai Emery, in the pre-match interview. He was asked the reason for his absence in the team against Crystal Palace. He said, Marco Bizot. He was asked, where is Emi Martinez? He said, Marco Bizot. He was asked, who will be your future goalkeeper? He says, Marco Bizot. He's obviously upset about the fact that Emi Martinez is on the verge of a move somewhere.
Or certainly that Martinez has had his head turned. I think speaking to sources close to Aston Villa, Unai Emery felt that maybe Martinez wasn't fully committed for this game. Obviously, the backup goalkeeper's come in and conceded a penalty, and they've been on the end of a hiding, so that won't improve his mood. But this has come somewhat out the blue. Manchester United were interested in Emi Martinez earlier in the summer. Then it went very quiet, and you may remember after the Arsenal game, United sources were telling me that the goalkeeper wasn't a priority position heading into the last couple of weeks of the window. Clearly something has changed. They stepped up talks with Seny Lammers, the young Belgian at Royal Antwerp, but that one has gone a bit cold in the last 24 hours, 48 hours or so. And they're certainly exploring a move for Martinez, whether that's a loan deal or a permanent transfer. It remains to be seen. But I was told they won't sign both Martinez and Lammers. So I think we're going to get an idea here of what direction the club wants to go in. Lammers is obviously a young, up-and-coming goalkeeper. Martinez at the different stage of his career, the opposite end of the spectrum, if you like, but he's a World Cup winner. He's a self-proclaimed best goalkeeper in the world. He's won that award as well. I think most Manchester United fans probably would prefer to go down the experience route because they've taken a punt on outside Bayern Deer and to a certain extent Andre Onana, and it's not really worked for them.
Kevin, as a manager, can you understand Unai Emery's frustrations?
Yeah, I can understand it, but I think, you only have to look at the end of last season, and it was all circulating then with the Man United rumours. So for it to go to the last day, it seems a bit strange for me. I must admit, it's, he was crying, walking around the pitch at the end of the season. It seemed that he was going to leave. So for it to get to this point, and you think that it's going to happen, that's where the frustration probably comes with Unai, because he probably knew that he was one who was going to leave, and then you get to the end of the window and you're thinking he ain't going to go, and then you get to your game today and all of a sudden he's not there. So yeah, it's a strange one for me, I must admit. From looking from out to in, it's a really strange one, but something which I'm not surprised by, because from last season going into this season, I thought he was not going to be an Aston Villa player.
He's always thought that he could be a number one goalkeeper at a big club. He played for Arsenal in an FA Cup final, made a move after that. Obviously has won the World Cup with Argentina, fancies his chances now and possibly at Manchester United. Interesting though, in the same game, you have a scenario where Emi Martinez isn't going to play because he might be on the verge of a move. There's so much speculation about Marc Guehi, yet he plays in the game tonight and scores one of the best goals that we'll see this season, Crook.
Yeah, and sometimes the fates just align, don't they? Because it's not every day of the week that Marc Guehi pops up with a 20-yard screamer into the top corner. You wonder if that is his parting gift to Crystal Palace fans who were singing his name all night as well, and singing about him going up to lift the FA Cup, obviously as Palace captain. I think Oliver Glasner is still loath to lose him. We were at Anfield, obviously, today, and Liverpool kept a clean sheet. It was a better defensive performance, but Konate went down injured toward the end, really exposing their lack of options in the centre-back area. So I do expect this deal to get done, even though Guehi played for Palace. And I think when you look at the Alexander Isak situation, Yohan Wissa, who obviously released a bombshell statement this morning, Martinez's head not right to play for Villa. I think you've got to praise Guehi for being professional, doing his job and delivering for the team. And actually, Eberechi Eze did the same right up to the last minute as well. So that tells me the culture at Crystal Palace is very, very good.
Yeah, and Oliver Glasner needs probably giving a big pat on the back for that, and another great performance by his team tonight. And actually, they were under the cosh, they were sitting back. Guehi takes matters into his own hands. The game completely changes and they get over the line again. They were the better team in the first half. They weathered a bit of a storm and they did well to get all 3 points. A bad start to the season, though, for Aston Villa. We're going to the international break. Second bottom in the Premier League. And you don't sort of need that pressure. And I sort of suggested to you, I thought there might be a bit of a disappointment this year because I wonder whether or not there's a bit of a hangover, actually. And Kevin, you might be able to answer this. If your team get into the Champions League, all of a sudden everybody is bubbling hot. The bonuses are paid. The ambition is realised. Everybody wants to go on an adventure with you again. You have 2 consecutive seasons in the Champions League. It can be transformational for your football club. But if you miss out and all of a sudden you find yourself back in the Europa League, or it's not as sexy as maybe playing in the Champions League, you haven't got your Champions League bonuses, they don't have the budget that you would expect them to have, things change, morale changes and heads dip a little, don't they?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. When the problem what you have, Sam, is that you get these players in, and he took a punt, didn't he? Getting Rashford in last year. I think there's a major worry for Villa in terms of PSR, and I think that's why that's probably happened. So for me, this is going to be a big season to see what Villa do and where they end up, because there's it just doesn't seem that everything's happy at the minute. Unai is obviously upset about losing Emmy now, but the fact of what's going to happen now from now till the end of the season is a big thing for me. I'm looking forward to seeing where they end up at the end of the season, and if he can do what he's done at previous clubs and go and win the Europa League and gain that money again, because when you're in that Europa League, you only get to the money when you get to the latter stages, and I think that's what they'll be expecting.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting listening to Alan Pardew actually on the way home from Liverpool tonight. At half-time, he was saying, you might not know, because not everything is always reported, that there might be, with 24 hours to go before the deadline, not just Emiliano Martinez making moves to try and get out of Aston Villa. There might be 3 or 4 players that are doing that. You've got to contend with that as a manager. Have you ever been in a dressing room where it does feel like you're at the end of a window or at the end of a cycle and people are trying to move on or trying to manoeuvre their way out? Have you got any examples of what it's been like in a dressing room like that?
Well, I can remember Andy Carroll going to Liverpool. It was unbelievable. We were sitting there in Tottenham and Liverpool were literally going toe to toe, and he ends up going to Liverpool. Everyone sort of trying to find out where Andy Carroll was, and he was at my house sitting there, and his agent there, and he was a good friend of mine, and they were sitting there going, well, Tottenham for that one or that, and Andy didn't want to go, Andy didn't want to leave, but Mike Ashley and Derek Lambias, they were like, no, we've accepted the offer, you need to go, so pick one. And obviously you pick Liverpool. So that was the strangest thing for me, because I was sitting on the opposite couch thinking, I wish that was me if I was going to Liverpool. But he deserved the move at that moment. He really did. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as well as it did. But yeah, it is strange. Like the next 20, I don't even think it's 24 hours now, but it's going to be very strange over the next 12 hours or so. Even certainly for us, because League One clubs, how it all goes down and how it all filters down is it's incredible to see. So, but why we're all involved and why we love.
That's so fascinating, because I remember working that night. That was the night where the sort of merry-go-round happened, right? Because Torres went to Chelsea and Carroll went from Newcastle to Liverpool. Huge opportunity for him. I mean, you say everyone was looking for him, and no one knew that he was in your house, so they were like sending cameras round everywhere. Was anyone sort of poking through the window trying to find out? Were you having to sort of hide your phone because you didn't want to text anyone? And did you convince him to go to Liverpool over Tottenham?
Well, Sam, let's not go there, mate. Come on. I was saying Liverpool's the one, definitely, obviously. But yeah, no, look, luckily enough, I had a long drive, so they couldn't get to see him from the gate. But no, they didn't know where he was, and yeah, he chose Liverpool from what he wanted to do, and it was such a surreal day when you look back and think of it. But at the moment, when you're in it, you don't think anything of it. I was just disappointed because my mate had lost a partner in crime in terms of on and off the pitch, and we were really good on the pitch. And I feel like if we would have kept that team, we would have been, a team to sort of challenge. But it wasn't to be, and I was delighted for Andy moving to such a fantastic football club.
And I suppose that there are direct parallels here because Newcastle had a big number 9 who they revered and wanted to keep, and you lost a partner, and now Newcastle may well lose a number 9 on deadline day in this window, and Anthony Gordon is going to lose a partner, and that will disrupt things at Newcastle. How close do you think that is to happening? You've been telling me all week you're sort of up in the air, 65, 60% sure that it will happen. What is your percentage as we sit here the night before the deadline?
Well, it's a good comparison, isn't it? Other than that, I seem to recall the Liverpool interest in Andy Carroll was not as public as the Liverpool interest in Alexander Isak has been. And it was way back in July, wasn't it, when he refused to go on the pre-season tour, sat out with what was billed at the time as a minor thigh issue. And then literally as Liverpool were on the plane, that was when we first started, as Newcastle on the plane, that was when we first started to get whispers of the fact that actually he wanted to move, and then he stopped using their training facilities, hasn't trained with the first team since, has basically gone on strike and refused to play. All the while, Liverpool have had one bid rejected. They haven't made a second bid. There's been talk that maybe they'll have to pay as much as £130 million. I'd be surprised if the number gets that high. And I think it's all dependent on what Newcastle can do in terms of replacement. They've signed Nick Voltemada, who is going to be the Isak replacement, but that means they still haven't replaced Callum Wilson, who left the club. So they are short of numbers up front. They're trying to address that. Looks like Yohan Wissa is going to stay at Brentford. That's our latest information.
Despite the fact that he feels as if he's being held captive?
No, yeah, but I think Brentford are pushing back on the fact any promises were made, similar to what Newcastle have said actually about Alexander Isak. And then you've got Jurgen Strand-Larsen thrown into the equation. So there are dominoes that need to fall. But I think the fact Liverpool haven't got a plan B, and I think they are still short in attack when you look at the fact they've sold Diaz and they've sold Darwin Núñez as well. That's what makes me think this deal will happen. And also, I'm tending to agree with what Stuart Pearce said on game day on Saturday. It's very difficult because Isak has taken such drastic action. He's released a statement. He's refused to play. It's difficult to see how you sort that situation out with Eddie Howe.
Yeah, but, they pushed back on that. The boys on the Game Day Live programme today, Perry Groves and Scott Minto, they said, and I know Troy Deeney said the same thing as what was said to you previously in the week, that there's no way back for him. He can't do it. Stuart Pearce and Troy are of the view that you've quit on us, so you can't come back into that dressing room. But actually, Scott Minto and Perry Groves were more of the opinion. Actually, do you know what? If he comes back in, we've got a great A-grade player who can certainly contribute to what we're doing. And it will only take a couple of training sessions or a couple of goals, and all of a sudden we'll all be mates again. Kevin, how would you see it if he decided to stay at Newcastle?
I don't think any of the lads will be bothered. I'll be honest with you. I don't think they will. I think he'll walk back into the. Well, obviously they've been talking, chatting. They'll have WhatsApp groups, all that now. Even in my time, going into that point, even when you're pushing for a move or whatever it is, you walk back into the dressing room and the lads are just the lads. They're just there to work. And if you've got one of the best strikers in the world coming back into your group, you're not going to start worrying about falling out with him because he wanted to leave Newcastle, because that's football. That's just how it is. He wants to go and he believes that he can go to Liverpool and be the better, be better and do the best thing he possibly can and win trophies and everything else. Now, all the Newcastle fans, and look, I've been there, will believe that they've given them the opportunity to do that in the Premier League. But what I'd say is that the players would just be, yeah, you're back in, let's get on with it, let's move on, and let's go. And that's where I firmly believe it would be.
Someone else who might have to go back into a dressing room after thinking that he wasn't going back there again is Nicholas Jackson, who was sold basically to Bayern Munich. He went on a loan with an option to buy at the end of next season, did a pre-contract with Bayern so that it would just go smoothly next summer if it all went well. Got to Munich, went to do his medical, did his medical, passed his medical, and then Chelsea phoned up and said, our number 9's just picked up an injury, you've got to go back. I mean, where are we with this? Because he says the plane doesn't go backwards.
Well, his agent said that, didn't he? Diamansi Kamara, former Portsmouth player, who maybe Kev would have played against back in the day. I don't think he actually got as far as having the medical. He flew in to undergo the medical, and then Chelsea withdrew permission for the medical to take place. He's still hauled up in Germany, I think still hoping that something can be salvaged. My reading of this situation is it's a little bit of a game of poker for Chelsea. Yes, the Delap injury has clearly derailed their plans, but I think they've said to Bayern Munich now, if you really want him, it's either a loan with an obligation to buy, as opposed to the option they'd already agreed, or you sign him permanently. But again, it's difficult for Nicholas Jackson, who was all smiles when he touched down in Munich, has clearly accepted the fact that he's going to leave Chelsea because he had his nose put out of joint by the fact they signed not one but two new centre forwards, to then all of a sudden be told, actually, you're coming back to Chelsea, basically only until Delap is fit. I can understand why he doesn't particularly want to do that. There is another scenario whereby Chelsea do sign an additional striker. There's talk of Conrad Harder, Sporting Lisbon potentially. So this is certainly going to be one we're going to be tracking right the way through until the window closes, I think.
Ederson was on the bench for Manchester City today. The Turkish window stays open for longer than the English window. In fact, a lot of the top 5 leagues are all sort of quite aligned, aren't they? They've sort of come together. It's why the Premier League is shutting theirs at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
But the Turkish one is open for a little while. We know that Ederson's got an offer from Turkish football, which is big money. The fact that Pep kept him on the bench today, does that sort of indicate that that's likely to go through now and that Trafford is his number 1? Trafford made a couple of good saves today, by the way.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world that they've decided to move on from Ederson, but equally it's up to the player if he wants to make that move to Turkey. £8 million a year is the contract offer. That would be a Turkish record, but as you say, it's slightly complicated by the fact their window doesn't close tomorrow in line with the Premier League. So do City gamble, bring in Donnarumma in the hope that Ederson goes? That could be quite an expensive gamble.
Are they only going to let Ederson go if they bring in Donnarumma? Because they signed James Trafford. Clearly, they've signed him to be the number 1, or they thought they were going to sign him to be the number 1, right?
Yeah, but they need 2 top quality goalkeepers, don't they? So
if Donnarumma comes in, James Trafford's going to be sitting on the bench.
Yeah, and you wonder where his head will be at. But again, as Kev said a couple of times, that is football, isn't it? I think the situation with Donnarumma is just a market opportunity that maybe they didn't think would be there. But I'm not sure how close the deal is because he's on huge wages at PSG. Last time I checked in with sources close to Donnarumma, they were saying, well, actually, PSG's asking price is a lot more than Manchester City want to pay. So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
I mean, if Donnarumma does go to Manchester City and Trafford ends up on the bench, I mean, Trafford should have gone to Newcastle United, shouldn't he?
But would he have ended up on the bench there, behind Nick Pope, because Ramsdale's gone up there? Nick Pope's still number 1. So what would he looking at? I was surprised when I seen that. Really, I'll be honest. I know James Trafford had a fantastic season in the Championship with Burnley, but it's really interesting to see that now he's gone, he's become number 1. I'd like to know what's gone on, because Ederson's been probably one of the top keepers with Alisson and Emmy Martinez, I should say, in the Premier League for years. So I don't know why all of a sudden he's not Man City's number 1. So it's all been quite a strange summer in terms of goalkeepers for me. But James Trafford would have been believing that he's going there to be number 1. Or was it the fact that they knew that they could get him back for that money so that they could sell him maybe for, and gain 10 million in the current market and the way it is now? I really don't understand it. But what I will say is that he wouldn't be happy being number 2 if they do bring Donnarumma in. So yeah.
Let's see what happens. I did hear a whisper when I was at the Etihad the other week that I think Edison has said that he does want to go. I don't know if that's anything to do with the fact that the money's on the table is just so big, the opportunity to go and play in a different culture is different. He's got maybe friends out there because then there's a lot of Brazilians in Turkish football. I don't know. But I did hear that he wanted to make that move.
It's just been a slow burner, isn't it? Because the talks have been there for a while. Same with Donnarumma. Again, it feels a difficult deal to do for Donnarumma on deadline day, but who knows? Things can change quickly.
Deadline day, the place to be across absolutely everything is on talkSPORT. From the minute you wake up right the way to when you finish your day and the deadline passes. In fact, even beyond that, Crook will be on air till 10 o'clock tomorrow night. On air from 6:30 with Jim White, a special show. talksport.com the whole day has a rolling blog which gives you everything. Our connected TV app, you can watch the whole thing on TV from 6 in the morning. We've got all of the reports and all the deals that happen will be on our talkSPORT app as well, where you can also watch and listen to all the programming. So that's the place to be. He's staying with me tonight, Kev. I'm making sure that he's fed, he's watered, he's got everything that he needs.
Yeah, I've seen that. You were looking after him.
I've taken him for a haircut today as well. Make sure he's all kitted out properly so that he's rested.
Oh, very well groomed.
You didn't do the ironing for me.
I did give you the iron.
You did.
But you did it
I
yourself.
dropped a couple of hints that maybe you could do it.
And I did say no. I'm not doing the haircut. I'm not doing the dinner. I'm not doing the bed. I even showered him, Kev, to be honest. No, I didn't. No, that's going too far. Right, okay. We'll have to wait and see exactly what unfolds as far as the transfer window is concerned. But on the big edition of the Premier League All Access podcast, we're also reviewing all of the weekend's football too.